Rise with India podcast on ET Now.
Good morning and thanks for listening in. This is the Daily Morning Update from ET Now and I'm Alex Matthew. Today is the 6th of August. Front and centre today is the decision by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India on interest rates. There's almost certain to be no change in the interest rates as fears of persistently high core and retail inflation remain. Economists and bond market participants will look for cues from the Reserve Bank of India governor on the central bank's liquidity policy, with the market currently flush with liquidity. The growth forecast for the year is expected to remain unchanged, but the inflation forecast will be keenly watched. There's big news on the tax legislation front that could have major implications for the likes of Vodafone Idea and Cairn. The Finance Ministry has proposed an important amendment to the income tax law that aims to make the levy of tax on indirect transfers prospective rather than retrospective. On the face of it, this seems to be a major step to resolve the controversial cases that emerged after the UPA government's contentious retrospective tax in 2012 that targeted the Vodafone Hutch deal and Cairn's internal restructuring, among others. Cairn Energy, for one, which is embroiled in a tax dispute with the Indian government, said it has taken note of the bill that was introduced in Parliament proposing certain changes to the retrospective taxation measures. In international news, President Joe Biden has said that Hong Kong residents in the United States can remain in the country for as long as 18 months, citing Beijing's crackdown on political freedoms in the territory. It wasn't immediately clear how many people Biden's order would affect. The vast majority of Hong Kong residents in the US are expected to be eligible for relief, with only narrow legal exceptions. Meanwhile, the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits declined further last week, while layoffs dropped to their lowest level in more than 21 years in July, as companies held on to workers amid a shortage of labor. Initial claims for state unemployment benefits fell 14,000 to a seasonally adjusted 3.85 lakh for the week ended the 31st of July, according to Labour Department data that was released yesterday. We may be entering a world in which Argentina's Leo Messi does not play for Barcelona. This is despite both parties having reached an agreement over a new contract, according to a statement by the La Liga club which was released yesterday. The statement cited economic and structural obstacles to renew the deal. Messi was a free agent in June and could negotiate a transfer with other clubs after his deal ran out, but Barcelona had always maintained that he wanted to stay with the club. And with that, it's over to Rohit Singh for the trade setup for the day in India. Morning, Rohit. How are we looking at the end of the week?
Good morning, Alex. This has been a week where we've moved from strength to strength. After 4 days of gains and a new high, the index could now look to pause. Nifty pulled back from the highs, but only modestly as banks and the broader markets chose to catch breath. India VIX pulled back below 13, indicating the momentum is still with the bulls. Giving strength to the momentum was the data that retail ownership in listed companies has reached an all-time high. Foreign investors chose to sell shares worth about 720 crore rupees, while domestic institutional investors were net buyers of roughly the same amount. Globally, US stocks ended higher after data showed fewer Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is Biden government's chief medical advisor, has warned things are going to get worse because of the Delta variant. Let's talk about the active stocks this morning. Watch out for the shares of Vodafone Idea as the centre has decided to scrap the retrospective aspect of taxing transfer of assets. ET reports that Vodafone Idea is unlikely to opt for bankruptcy, as such a move may indicate the company was to blame for the crisis. Cipla has reported a 25% increase in net profit year-on-year. Margins too have held up steady. Hindalco and Mahindra will report numbers today, so keep an eye for the market reactions. Tata Motors expects a 25 to 30% uptick in its monthly volumes for the upcoming festival season. Reliance has entered the EV space with its fuel retailing JV signing an agreement with Swiggy. Banking stocks are likely to see a revision in weightage in the Bank Nifty after a rebalancing exercise today. HDFC Bank, IndusInd Bank, and AU Small Finance Bank are likely to see the highest fund inflows. The Supreme Court will today decide the fate of the 27,000 crore rupee deal between Future Retail and Reliance Group, which has been challenged by Amazon. We may get a status quo from the MPC outcome as inflation remains sticky. That aside, we are facing a possible consolidation once again after the swift up move this week. That's all from my end. Thank you for listening in. It's back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Rohit. And as always, thank you all for listening in. This is Alex Matthews signing off. Have a great end to the week and an amazing weekend.
The Rise with India podcast on ET Now.